If seeing a redfish tail on the flat doesn't get you super pumped, you shouldn't be fly fishing. This is a fish that beginner fly fishermen can target and advanced anglers can enjoy just as much. What is up, my guys? Thanks for tuning in again to another story here where we're talking about some of my favorite, most memorable catches, and specifically when I caught certain species. As you know, this is the first time I caught a redfish, the first time I caught tarpon, blah 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 blah, on the fly. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be talking about bull redfish, which technically is a redfish over 20 pounds. And there used to be a ton of them when I started fly fishing, still in the Indian River system and lagoon system, and they're still there, but with all the water problems we've had, it's just, you know what's happened to that fishery. But let's focus on the fish, I guess, for this conversation. The other water quality conversation is just beating a dead horse at this point. But the bull redfish there was a time where I graduated from walking those dike roads with my 5-weight to actually bringing my kayak out there and starting to paddle around and explore. And I didn't do nothing. I would look at Google Earth in the morning and kind of get an idea of what's going on as far as, you know, the shorelines and where I might want to target fish. And then I would go out there and I would look all by myself. So, you know, a lot of you guys getting into the sport don't think you gotta have like a group of friends and all this stuff. And right off the bat, I mean, for years I fished by myself. I didn't even know anybody that fly fished. So just go out and do it. But I had an old, and this is another thing, don't think you have to have the best gear either, because remember at this point, if you saw the first episode, I still running around with a $200 combo that I bought from Bass Pro Shops. It was a 5-weight and it was a trout rod, and it was all I had. I didn't have money to go buy nothing, and I was forced to use it. And I'm out there looking for redfish, and then when it comes to my kayak, I had like a 10-year-old at the time, 10-year-old kayak. It was like a sit inside Pelican. So like you weren't sitting on top of it like most of these fishing kayaks. You were down inside it. From that vantage point, you really couldn't see a lot. If there was a tailing fish, you could see it, but you wouldn't really be able to spot anything. And I would take that sucker out, and I was out one time, got my first redfish on the fly out of that. But how that happened was I was in Crystal River and I was talking with some guy. I don't even know who it was, to be honest, anymore. At the fly shop that used to be at the Best Western in the hotel lobby. There was like one corner of it was a fly shop, and I was in there talking to some dude about fishing, fly fishing, and he gave me this little redfish fly, and he was like, yeah, you know, I hear they're catching redfish with stuff like this. You should give it a shot. And he gave it to me, and a few weeks go by maybe, and it's the weekend, time to go fishing, and I'm in the Indian River, right out of Peacock's Pocket. I launched my kayak and I paddled out, sort of that north corner of the Indian River Lagoon, and there were tailing fish everywhere. It was one of those times where, thinking back, you know, if I did have a paddleboard or something I could have stood up in, it would have been incredible. But I would just look for tails, they'd go down, and I'd try and make a cast without spooking them. You know, from that low of a position was difficult. And I ended up casting. I remember the fly landed in this little redfish. It wasn't big. Came from, I don't know, 10 feet and just shot across the flat quick and hammered it. And I hooked up, and I was so pumped. I maybe even called my brother like while after that happened, while I was still out in the kayak. And that led to me fishing all over that place. And one time I was up, again, very north corner of the lagoon, and I was in the kayak, and there was no way to pee out of the thing because you couldn't stand up in the boat. It was that unstable. And it was a sit inside, you know, so I'm not gonna pee in there. So I would pull the boat out and get out and take a piss on some of the islands or some of the sides there. And I pulled off on the side, and it was pretty good ground, and the dike road ran right along there. So there was the lagoon, the dike road, and then a canal. And I had caught all kinds of fish in the canals before, so I got out to take a piss, and I went up and just looked in the water in the canal side. And meanwhile, keep in mind, this is a small canal, you know, maybe the size of the one lane of traffic. And heavy mangroves on both sides. So like you can't really even cast into it except from like these alligator slides where the gators come in and out. And I remember I walked up there and I was like, you know, I'm gonna bring my fly rod, and I had a chartreuse Clouser minnow, a number 4. And I walked out there and I'm standing there and I look over and there's a redfish coming right on the surface. Absolutely huge. Big, you know, and I didn't know what to do. I almost froze, but I was able to get my fly off, strip a little bit of line. By this time he's literally right in front of me, and I did this little thing like this, lifted the rod tip, the fly came floating by his face, and he just opened up, sucked it in. I stuck him, and I have this 5-weight trout rod. I just hooked I think it was 44 inches, hooked this thing, and he goes shooting down to the canal. Now the problem is I can't run along the bank because there's palm trees and there's these mangroves that are taller than I am, so there's no way to follow him down the bank. So I stick in my rod through the bushes, he's pulling line down to my left, and he's just taking line. I can't do anything. And I'm just praying this thing stops. And I'm putting pressure, and the canal went a good long ways and then made a 90-degree turn. I mean, because these were dug out. So this thing gets right up to that corner, and I'm putting pressure, and I'm thinking, man, he's gonna go around the corner and he's gonna cut me off, or it's gonna be too much. And sure enough, I'm like, dang, I'm gonna have to get in this water and go around this big bush. And you know, there's gators out there like crazy. Anybody that fishes out there knows those things are full of alligators. And I'm so pumped, I'm so like pretty much high. I'm not thinking clearly, and I just hop right in. I go around the edges of the bushes, get out on the other side of the bank. I'm able to stop the fish, and I see him stop, and his big tail comes up, boom. Then he starts shooting back down at me, so I'm stripping in line, he gets up to me, and I'm able to fight him right there and end up landing him. And I had no real way to photograph at the time. I didn't have a camera. I'm still using a cell phone, which wasn't very good back then, and there was no way to do the selfie thing, or it was a huge fish. So I remember I'm gonna try and find the photo for this, but I laid him out on the back or the front of my kayak, something like that. And I do have a video clip somewhere of releasing it, so that would be cool if I could find that too. And that was my first redfish, and my first bull redfish caught on the fly, both in the Indian River Lagoon, right out of Peacock's Pocket. And just one of those times that, again, that it just takes the fly fishing experience to another level. And that was years and years and years ago. And it's just, anybody that's targeted redfish knows that those types of big redfish are special. And unless you're in Louisiana where they're everywhere or something like that, at least right now with the lagoon and the Indian River and the conditions it's in, those fish are becoming few and far between for the state of Florida. So just a super cool fish. And leave a comment below, guys. Let me know where you caught your first redfish, where you caught your first bull redfish. And be sure to subscribe, I guess, at this point. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe. And check the links below in the description of the video. Check us out on Patreon as well. And I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching. Deuces.